Okay.
Sucks to be in exile during Shabbos. These are the original manuscripts.
Some of them are manuscripts and some of them are like first prints.
Yeah, looks to me like both.
Really, this is really like a tour through history. Okay.
The thing about that is some of those books have been reprinted, some have not.
Okay. Today we're going to start exactly on top of Daf Nun Aleph. You've been holding with?
Mhm.
You've been holding with? Okay. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Are you making a siyum on first Pesach? So you have to catch up those 2 pages or whatever.
Oh,
Okay.
50 on the page.
No, 51A. Okay. I think Hashem that we're able to learn every day. Most of our learning we should have the basic English immediately. Dan Rabbanan, start in a brisa. Which type of corpse has this dust, which is considered tamei if there's a spoonful of this dust, disintegrated corpse will make a house tamei. Not the house tamei, but makes anyone that anything that enters into the house tamei. Under the same roof will make it tamei. So which type of corpse will have this type of disintegrated dust? It would need to be, it's usually not going to happen. Usually the corpse is buried in either its own clothes or in tachrichim, in the shrouds. This would have to be that it's buried naked and the coffin is made out of marble, because otherwise you're going to have other elements mixed into this dust and it's not pure corpse disintegration. Or if it wasn't a marble coffin, it would have to be on the stone, on a stone floor. Now, don't take any halachas out of this, that we use stone coffins and whatever, and or marble coffins, all of that. It doesn't mean that this is the tradition. It's just saying how it would take place, that there would be rekev, which is this dust.
So it's the only way that this is created.
Then it would be a mixture of the wood together with the corpse. The wood would also disintegrate a little bit, and that wouldn't be. It's not. It doesn't have to do with like acceptable, not acceptable. It has to do with the halacha of this dust contaminating a house is only if it was in such a scenario. Nikvar b'ksusa, if he was buried in his clothing, baron shalates, or in a coffin of wood, ayal gabiritz b'shel levanim. Sounds like bricks. Levanim, l'irsa shel levanim. Zo meishi ein le rekev. This would be a corpse that doesn't have the rekev, this halach. Okay, Amar Ula. Ula is a traveler, and he brings halachas. And one of the halachas that he said was ein rekev ela habam min abasim min agidim min atzamis. In order for this to have the status, the disintegrated dust to have the status of rekev, that it would give off impurity under the same roof, anything under the same roof, it would need to be that it's a combination of the flesh, the sinews, and the bones all together. Esvei Rav Ula. So Rav asks Ula a question. A lot of times you have a Bai asking Ula. But Ula, I guess, shows up in Babylonia in the days of Abaye and Rava. Here, Rava asks Ula a question. 1 second. Rekev haba min habasar is tar. You have a statement that says like this, that if the dust comes from disintegrated flesh, then it's tar. But hamina etzem, if it would come from just the bone, it doesn't say. probably. The fact that it said only the Brisa says that if it comes from the flesh, it's tahar, it's pure. That would tell me that if it comes from the bones, it would be tummy. It didn't tell me anything about that. So coming from the bones is tummy. Even though you don't have any flesh on it. Kashan Anula. Ula said it's only tummy if you have a combination of all three parts of the corpse. The flesh, the sinews, and the bones. And here we're seeing that the bones itself give off a tumah. Well, all of that was an assumption based on what we deduced from a simple statement that says that if it comes from the flesh, it's tar. Gemara says, maybe that's not the assumption is incorrect. Maybe what it means to say is rekev haba min habasar is tar. If it comes from the flesh, it's pure. Unless there's a bone attached. You implied that if it comes from the flesh itself, it's tar, but it comes from the bone itself, it's going to be tummy. Maybe that's not what it meant to imply. Maybe what it meant to imply is that, but it needs to have a bone. If it has a bone, then it would be tummy. And a bone, Ula would agree with. Gemara says, 1 second, Ula wouldn't agree with that either, because halakha gidim, you don't have the sinews. If he wanted to imply that, he would have said, rekev haba min habasar v'gidim is tar, ad de'ika etzem, until there's the bone, right? He didn't say that, it's just basar. The Gemara says, don't worry about that point, because ef shel basar v'atzamis plegidim. That's going to be automatic. If you have bone and you have flesh, then for sure you have the sinews. The sinews are sort of like what attach everything together. The veins and other things that would be holding it.
So there's certain parts of a corpse that are not. That doesn't make someone tummy.
No, there's the corpse makes on time. The question is, when you get the dust from the corpse, it has to be a representation of the full corpse, right? You have to have the bones, the sinews, and the flesh disintegrated into this one spoonful.
All three?
Yeah, all three. Only then will it become. Why didn't we mention the sinews if that's important? He says because it's automatically there. This was asks. So why did Ula have to mention the sinews? It's automatically there. Ula could have just said basar and atzamas. Good question. If the Gemara doesn't think it's significant, why did Ula have to put it in? If it's not that it's not significant. It's just that it's going to always be there. So you don't have to. It's implicit. It's implicit. So the Gemara says that there is a case where it's not, and that would be if it's a nefel, a stillborn or a fetus. But there you actually have to mention that you have the gidim there because the sinews, because it's possible that the sinews weren't developed there. Okay, that's why Ula had to mention it. Okay, let's go further. Amar Rav Shmuel Barabba Amar Rav Yechanan. Yes, on the side it says Amar Rav Shaman Barabba Amar Rav Yechanan. Shnei Mesim Shekavran Zeh Nasa Galgalim Zelazer. Two corpses that were buried together creates a similar problem. Not a problem, but creates a similar halacha, a similar status to if it was buried with something else, like for example, in a wood coffin or with the clothing, because it needs to be the pure corpse itself. And one corpse together with another corpse interferes with it becoming rekev. It can't be a mixture of something else. It has to be exactly just pure this corpse. So each one on the other one is going to become galgalim. Galgalim probably means a mixture. Now, this is a very difficult translation. The Taisvis says another version. It says gangilan, and the Aruch says that galgalim means that it's dirt that was rolled in from somewhere else. And then he quotes I don't know what language the Aruch spoke, French. Kutraima, and which means that it needs to be pure and not anything else mixed in. Oh, okay. I don't speak Greek, so I can't even read it. Yeah, the commentators here are quoting different languages, figure out what Galgala means. Okay. So we learned the interesting halacha from Rabbi Yochanan is that the corpse needs to be alone. It can't be even together with another corpse. Well, Masiv Rav Nassan bar Rabbi Yoshia, the Bach adds in. Rav Nassan bar Rabbi Yoshia asks the question. It must be from a manuscript. I'm not sure why that had okay. Rekev haba mi beis mesim tamei. It's a very strong question. Rabbi Yochanan said that if it comes from two corpses, it's not going to be tamei. Yeah, again, a corpse is of course tamei, but we're not talking about a corpse. We're talking about disintegrated dust. The corpse disintegrated and we're left with a spoonful of dust. Will that give off tumah in a house? No, that's give off tumah in a house. That anyone that enters the house under the same roof becomes tamei. That's very severe halacha. So Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Shaman Bar Abba named Rabbi Yochanan, that says if two corpses are buried together, that doesn't happen. And Rabbi Nassan bar Yoshia asked the question that we have the dust that comes from two corpses, Brisa, that tells us that it does happen. It is tummy. Could be. They used to bury in caves. There would be like little openings in the walls of the caves. They would put slide the body inside, and then it would disintegrate there. And then they would find a burial place for the bones. They would take the bones out.
Any halacha the rice of it says anything about burial? Does the body has to be buried?
Yeah, there's a pasuk. This is in Mayat Katan, I think. Afarat, the Lafar Tashu, you're supposed to reach into the dirt. Right. I remember you come from, right. Right. Right.
And if the body is inside a house, if people walk in, they don't come here because
that would need to be very specific halacha. There would need to be a certain amount of space in between the body and the casket. We would need to have a tefa. It would need to be under its own roof, and under its own roof would need to be there's the corpse. You would need to have an area that would create a roof over itself. But if the body was within the top of it, I think the tumah would spread to the whole house. Right? Unless maybe I'm missing one point over here that maybe the casket gives off tumah anyway. I'm not sure. There's a special halachas about a casket. Goylal and Daifik. They could give off their own tumah. Okay. Well, we have a strong question here. Amar Rava answers the question. Shekavru zebefniatz or zebefniatz for kiva v'amdo al mali tarved. Rava says, I'll tell you what's happening. It's an easy answer. When Rabbi Yochanan says that they were buried together, they don't create this halacha of rekev because they were buried together. They disintegrated together. What the Brisa was talking about when two of them mixed together to reach a measurement of a tarved, which is the small spoon, that is like a fistful or something, of this dust. So that's because each one disintegrated independently. Each one was half a tarved, and when you mix it together, they create a full tarved. But that's because they disintegrated separately, and then they were joined afterwards. In other words, part of this process of creating this halacha is that the way it disintegrates has to be pure. So if there would be another body mixed, another corpse mixed in, then it won't create that halacha. But if it has The issue over here is not that it's not pure. The issue over here is that it wasn't enough size. So one corpse with another corpse will create a size of a tarvate as long as it disintegrated on its own.
Tarvate is a unit of measurement.
Yeah,
Volume.
I think so. Yeah. You get the difference, the answer? If it disintegrated to get two corpses together, or if they each disintegrated separately and were mixed together after. If they disintegrated separately and mixed together afterwards, then they'll give off that tumah. Okay. Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba Bar Bar Chana, very common to speak in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Not in the, it says over something in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. He says, Gaza Sare B'Kavrime Nasale Galgalim. He says the same thing would apply that if the person got a haircut and the corpse, they cut the hair of the corpse, and then they left the hair right in the marble coffin, expecting it to disintegrate, but the hair disintegrates with it. Well, now that the hair is detached, it becomes like it was buried in clothing or buried in a wood coffin, and it's not the pure corpse that's disintegrating, and therefore the laws of Rekev are not going to apply. Tanan Hassam, it's taught over there. Kol Shebemet, you see what's going on over here in these halachas is that we're getting a statement and then we're challenging it from everything else that we know. So Kol Shebemet Tamei, Chutz min Hashinayim v'asar v'tziporin v'shas chiburim kulam Tamei. It says that any part of the corpse is tamei, except for the teeth, the hair, the nails. But while they're attached, they are tamei. So, which means if someone touches the teeth while it's attached to the corpse, then he's going to become tamei. But if the teeth are removed from the corpse, then it's not tamei. I mean, you mentioned Rabbi Yochanan's child that he had a tooth, kept it on a necklace.
But it
Wasn't, and of course, it wasn't attached to the. Probably they would take teeth when they were making those in the olden days. They made dentures. They would probably take teeth from corpses. Is that possible?
Yeah.
They would take it, especially if they were like metal, and that's not that metal tooth wouldn't give off tumor. Those golden teeth covered in we see people with gold. Is that covered or is that a piece of gold that's stuck in there?
I think they put it over the tooth.
It's over a tooth. It's a cap. Right?
Yeah, but it could have also been like one of the kids, like baby teeth.
Oh, interesting.
So I thought, and this example reminded me of the other example that kind of like on the bridge, like if the Nazir was touching someone and that person was touching the corpse, like he would get contaminated.
Right.
Kind of.
Right, exactly. If it's attached. Okay, so far no problem, no questions. It's good. We're saying that if it's a detached, then it doesn't give off tumor. Well, by Chizkiah has a question. Remember, Chizkiah is the son of Reb Chia, friend of Rabbi Yochanan. Says Sarah, let's say the guy needs a haircut. All right. It's a corpse. The corpse needed a haircut. He needed a haircut while he was alive. Then he died. The nails needed to be cut because they were too long. So what's the din now? Do we say that here that was deserving to be cut because it was too long? He needed a haircut. We say that's considered cut already. As if we consider it as if it's cut. Or maybe we say that 1 second. The fact is it's still attached. Give you an example. When putting something in the mikveh, there's this discussion about like a long shovel or something. Mishnayos. So a very long handle that you have to cut it. You have to cut the handle. They would make it like that, these long sticks, and then they would cut it down to the right size. So if it was tamei and it was put in the mikveh, so if it was covered up to the point where it was going to be cut, it's considered that it was immersed. even though at the edge of it, the end of it was sticking out, but that wasn't going to be used anyway. That was going to be removed. So, in other words, certain times in halacha, we say that it's considered like it's not there because it's going to be cut. Question is now, do we consider it already detached because it's standing to be cut? So now you have this corpse that's being buried, just naturally buried, without any additions. There's no clothing on it. There's no, it's not a wood coffin, it's in a marble coffin. Only thing is, they didn't cut the hair before and they didn't cut the nails before. So now when it decomposes with the hair and the nails that were ready to be cut, which means that it's something extra.
After it's a corpse, doesn't the hair and the nails continue to grow?
Oh yeah? They do? For how long?
That's why they have to accept the corpse, but shave it and all that. It's a few days after in other religions.
It will continue to grow for a few days.
I don't know how long.
I don't know if Google knows.
Yeah.
One time in the shir, I was talking about something. I said, Google it. And then like this, like my phone or someone's phone said, what is it that, so I said, what is it that you want to, it picked up on, I said the word Google it.
Like that'll be on their next president.
Okay.
Yes, it could be, because not all parts of the body shut down at the same rate. It's a process. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we had the same discussion 5 years ago
Over here?
around this table. It was inconsequential then also,
5 years.
About this issue,
about death,
or about
about the
Here.
process of death.
Was this, were you studying Chulin? Where were we studying?
During Cooling.
Okay. I don't remember.
were we here then?
We were here
You and me
and we asked Rennie to opine on the subject.
Okay.
From a few things that I've came across, according to this, is like a few articles. I don't know where that stuff started.
If Dr. Stein hears us, you should send us a message. What's the ruling on that? Discussing if the hair continues to grow after after it passes
The
away.
example to use is that the dehydration occurs after death, so it could lead to the retraction.
Oh,
of the
so it's not
skin.
really growing
It's just
because
it's exposed more.
the skin shrinks in, so it looks like it's growing. Okay.
Still need to shave them. Right? Or
Could
whatever.
be, and that's what we're talking about. If it wasn't cut, is
Yeah.
it considered that it's separated? And okay, the Gemara says, "V'nifshad le midrabba bar bar Chana." Why can't we just answer this? Why does Chizki have a question? Can you answer it from Rabbi Bar bar Chana said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan that he said that if the hair is cut, then it's considered like something separate. Obviously, if it's not cut, considered attached. I'm Mishum the Gazas, Halei Gazas Lai. Or else he wouldn't have said that. Rabbi Yechanan said, if you bury the hair that was shorn together with the corpse, then it's considered a separate something separate. Obviously, if it wasn't cut, then it's not separate. Gemara says, Hachikamer, no. Gazas Reza Galgalim. What Rabbi Bar bar Chana said is exactly what Chizki is asking. Because Rabbi Bar bar Chana was just saying what he thinks is obvious. He thought that it was obvious that if it's cut, it's considered separate. And he didn't conclude. What if it's not cut? It's not cut. That would have been Rabbi Bar bar Chana's question, which is exactly Chizki's question. We thought we had an answer from the fact that he didn't say anything. But that means that it's considered attached. He said, no, that means that it's considered his question. And he doesn't know about that. So Chizki has a question that was the same question as Rabbi Bar bar Chana. We don't have an answer. Oh, you Rabbi Yirmiyah. This gets exciting. Rabbi Yirmiyah always has questions that get to to the base of everything that we're talking about. It's excellent questions. Rekev abam and akev. If the dust is coming from the heel, so mahu, what's the din? Let's read a little further. We'll explain. Kigamrin and rekev abam mikulames. Do we say that it needs to come from the decomposition? Needs to come from the entire corpse. But if it comes from the heel, no. Maybe there's no difference. Okay, now there's two possibilities of what the question here is. One possibility is that is the heel considered dead skin? And just like the hair is separate from the body, so maybe the heel is also considered separate from the body. And you can't have any external part of the body here, anything external to the body, decomposing, or else it's not going to be considered rekev. That's one possibility. The Gemara is asking if the akev is going to affect because it's considered separate. But Tosfos, I think, doesn't like that shot. Yeah.
I don't know.
One second. But I see he had two interpretations, and he says he likes one of them. Just 1 second. No, this question, I'm sorry. The way I'm explaining it, this was the Chizkiah's question. Tosfos had two explanations for Chizkiah's question regarding the hair. Do we say that it's attached to the body? On the hair, that's what he was asking. I'm sorry. On the hair, Tosfos had two explanations for it. Is that one explanation was, do we say that since it should have been cut, so it's considered external to the body and it becomes galgalim? Or do we say that it's considered part of the body itself? And it can't be part of the record. It's not part of the measurement. Are we discussing the measurement? Or are we discussing what gets mixed into it? Okay, but over here, the question would be like this. Here the question is like this. Do we say that the decomposition needs to come from the entire corpse, and the heel itself is not the entire corpse, right? Or do we say that that's one option? That's one way of posing the question. The other way of posing the question is that do we say that the heel is already considered dead skin and that's not considered the rekev?
Talking about callus.
Right? There's two possibilities of this question.
Is one of them that like the heel is not considered so it'll contaminate the dust?
No. Contaminate the dust is a confusing term because the dust, we're looking for dust that's contaminated. But there is another thing, contaminating the dust means mixing into the dust that makes the dust not contaminated. That's a confusing term. So here we're talking about, there's a possible question that Rabbi Yirmiyah is posing is, do we need the whole body or not? Other possible question is the heel specifically not part of this question, not part of this discussion because the heel is already dead? Okay, let's take a look. Tashima, the Tanu Rab Nassan Barashia. Oh, maybe that's why the Bach adjusted it before. He said Rab Nassan Barashia taught Rekev Abba Mishnein Nesim. You see, it's exactly the same quote. Rekev Abba Mishnein Nesim Tameh. Exactly the same quote as the Bach adjusted before Rab Nassan Barashia. That this decomposition, the dust that comes from two corpses is Tameh. And if you would say that the heel doesn't count. Zil hacha dilma derech ekev kasi, v'hacha dilma derech ekev kasi. Maybe what you're getting, that you're looking for a perfect, the exact amount of the tarved, but really you're getting from the heel. Gemara says, "Idir kav kula mesa the kasi derech ekev hachanami." If stays over here. If the entire corpse decomposed and you're just taking from one end of it, which would be the heel end, so then we would say that that's considered that it's the rekev, that it is considered this dust that gives off tumah. But over here we're talking about just the heel itself that was alone that decomposed. It wasn't even the whole corpse. So what do you say now? Okay, now this Gemara is very unclear because it doesn't tell me what the difference is if the whole corpse was there and you took from the end of the heel, or if there was just the heel was there and you took from the end from the heel. It's talking about the same, it's all the same thing, right? I've been talking about it's closed in a marble thing. So what's the difference? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but the Gemara finishes off with the Teku, where it doesn't know the answer to Rabbi Yirmiyah's question about which we had different ways of explaining the question. Okay, boy Rabbi Yirmiyah. Yeah, that's going to come up again. Nevertheless, we also spoke about that if it was just bones alone, that you needed a certain amount of bones or a certain amount of bones of the body, the majority of the body or the build of the body to give off this tumah in the house. Here we're talking about where it's a full limb. You know, the bones, the flesh, and over there it gives off tumah even without the majority of the bones. If it's
in some areas, there's just like could just be bones anywhere. You know,
Right.
like archaeology or something like
Right.
that, especially like old places, civil war sites, things like that.
Right.
This could be something, probably
Right.
without my knowledge. Now, I guess it doesn't matter so much.
After a certain time of them being buried, isn't it just bone strap? Unless they're like
Yeah,
very,
yeah, it's just going to be bones left.
there has, I've heard of big scholars. that
Right.
The body being decomposed.
Right. Remember in Muncie, the Civil War cemetery? It's like right in the center, like.
Oh, is that right?
Okay. It was on what's that street called? Not 306. 306. It was Main Street that turns into 306. No, what was the street that went all the way up? It's actually across from the end of Blauvelt, right over there. Remember where Base 2 was? Another best hour show. A little cul-de-sac. Right on the top of that, across from Bishraga. Like on that corner.
Civil War cemetery.
There was a cemetery. It was just, I don't know, maybe there was like 50 graves in there or something. Civil War.
They were marble.
I think they were marble, yeah.
The headstones.
The headstones were marble. Okay. That's when they rang that old fire bell. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember? No, they had a bell to call the firemen. They had an old they had a bell that they rang.
Oh.
Okay, Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah has another question. Uber b'meisha. Here we're talking about a woman that passed away and she was pregnant, and the body decomposes. And the question is the fetus considered external to the body? You know, if there's something external there, it's not going to be counted as rekev because. Does that consider that it's something that's rolled in? You know, that's something that's mixed in or not? You know, we have a statement that the fetus is considered a limb of the mother. Okay. So hilkach gufa, it's considered part of the body of. Or maybe we're not going to say that here because even the sefer latzis, because since it was in the end going to come out, it would have come out. So mifresh parashmina, it's considered separate. Do you consider it as part of the body, or do you consider it separate? Even if you say it's part of the body, but maybe because it's going to become separate, that you can't count it. If you say that since it's going to come out, it's considered separate, so the question goes on. What about shichva zera b'meisha? Let's say this woman had relations and she passed away like immediately afterwards. So that sperm that's inside of her, is that considered part of her, or is it not considered part of her? We say because it didn't take form, so it's considered part of her body. In other words, once it takes form, then we say, okay, it's on its way out. But here, it's even not on its. It's not even on its way out because it hasn't formed yet into a embryo. Or we can say, 1 second, this is an external substance to begin with. So it's for sure not her. Okay, we're asking, once it goes into the egg, once it's fertilized, right? So then we would say, well, that's already considered the fetus. But this is even before that. Do we say, probably in the 3-day period? Or do we say it's an external substance? Okay, by Rav Papa. Rav Papa has another question. Pir Shemahu. What if there's excrement? Even do we say that look, she had to eat, so chiyusu? It's not a she over here, now it could be a he. This is part of the life. Like it has a heart, it also has food. Do we say no, it came from the outside? Rav Acha Ravika has a question. What about the skin? A little surprising. Goes on. What about the phlegm and the mucus? That's external. If you want to say that all of these are considered external to the body, so you never have a case of rekev. It's impossible. You're going to get someone without skin, without mucus, without. So the Gemara says, well, we could figure out a way. It's not so common, but the Ashkin made the column. They drank this potion right before they died. Could have been part of the reason of made the column. This empties the person out. I don't know exactly. It says palm water. Water of a palm. It may be some other type of water, but it's apparently it's what do they call these things when they cleansing? Yeah, it's of course a laxative, but this is
cathartic.
What is it?
Cathartic. CATHARTIC. Cathartic.
The cleansing. Right.
When they're going to get their insides checked out.
And they have to clean everything, right? And also you would need Besachi Nasher. You would also have to remove all the hair. You would put on the person that that cream, and that would remove all the hair. V'shalkum mei Tveria, and they also have to soak in the water of Tveria. Now, I guess that would remove at least the external skin. Yeah, shalku could mean actually boil and make Tveria. What does it say? Soak or boil?
Here has it translated as hot waters of Tveria.
Oh, in the hot waters of Tveria. So then the skin starts to come off, the hot springs. Amar Abaya says, if the corpse was ground up, then there won't be any rekev. There's a question. Yeshiva has a question. I get what you're saying, that if you grind it up, it doesn't have rekev. Because what you're saying is that when you grind it, it becomes like dust. But that's not really the dust that we're talking about when we talk about rekev. When we talk about the rekev, we talk about disintegrated dust. Here, you did the whole process in 1 minute. The corpse got ground up. So then that's not the rekev that we were referring to. So the yeshiva has a question. Okay, let's say it was ground up, and then you let that ground up powder now, you let that disintegrate. What happens now? What's the problem that you need to have the flesh, the meat, and the bones? Okay, yeah, it's all in there. Or maybe it needs to decompose naturally, and it doesn't decompose naturally. It was already ground up. We leave this as a question. This is a very uncommon. Based on this Gemara, this is probably never going to happen, because when's the person going to take that drink and take off all the hair and then sit in the hot springs of Tveria and then die right away, and then before they eat or before the hair grows or skin grows back, and they have to be buried in a marble thing without any clothing on? Tani Ula Barchanina Meisha Chaser Ein Le Rekev. A corpse that's missing part of it doesn't have rekev. Like tfusa. Okay, tfusa is that if you find the corpse, you have to take it to burial. You remove some of the dirt together underneath. There's a certain amount of dirt that sort of like absorbed maybe some of the fluids of the corpse. You have to remove that together with it, and you bury all of that dirt together. And also, it doesn't create a cemetery neighborhood, which means that if you find a corpse here and a corpse here and a corpse here, we say, okay, the whole area is considered a cemetery. That would only apply if those corpses were intact. But if one of them was missing, part of the body, so then it won't create that rule of the cemetery. Meisvei, where's the question? Okay, the introduction to this is that we're dealing with an amount of flesh that came from a living person. Flesh that comes, a kazayas of flesh that comes from a corpse gives off tuma if someone touches it. What if the kazayas of flesh comes from a living person? We said, 1 second, let's do a comparison. If it would have been a corpse dead, then you have the halachas of roiv, that you need to have the majority of the bones. Roiva, and the bones need to be a roiva kav, which is a quarter kav, a certain amount. Or it needs to be this certain amount, a spoonful of the disintegrated dust. But when it comes to something alive, you don't say that the tumah is in majority of the bones. You don't say roiva. You don't say if the bones are. You don't have any of these halachas. Okay, so we're talking about now that if there's something removed from a living person, it doesn't have the halachas of mali tarvid record. That's what we said. It doesn't have the halachas of disintegration. Hey chidami, what are we talking about? We just did a comparison. Are we talking about that one limb was decomposing? And we're saying that because this limb was coming from a living person, so it doesn't have the halacha of this decomposition, as opposed to a corpse, which does have this halacha of this decomposition, this dust. So what we would say the same thing, the kavasei gabi mesa, filu chadever. You see, you have to match this up. You did a comparison here. You did a limb from a living person, a limb from a corpse. This one has the halacha of rekev. This one doesn't have the halacha of rekev. 1 second. You just told me that the corpse needs to be intact to have the halacha of rekev. Now you did a comparison, a limb for a limb, and you said one has and one doesn't have. That doesn't match up. Umar says, Miktani hames. Are we doing the comparison that we're saying that this corpse itself, in other words, if this body itself would have been dead, then it would have had no. We're doing a very big generalization here. We're saying that anything living doesn't have the halachas, but some things dead do have the halachas. It's not saying this exact comparison has the halachas of record. And the Gemara is going to do this one more time. Same question and the same answer. Rava says, let's say part of this person started to decompose while he was alive, but then he died. So Kigamiri rekev the irkev kshumes. Eidil mahashtami amayas. We say that rekev is only after the person dies, and this started to decompose before him. Or do we say, what's the difference? It was this part of the body was starting to die, and now the whole body died, and we have this decomposition here. So kigamiri rekev the irkev kishume say domashmi amais. Okay, fine. Tashima, so come and listen. We quote the exact same story, which is this comparison between a limb or flesh from a human, not a human, flesh from someone that's alive, flesh from someone that's passed away. We say that this one has a certain amount of halachas. It has the halachas of the bones and the amount of bones and the rekev, but the one that's alive doesn't have any of those halachas. So we'll say that it's not going to have to give off the tumah. We say the Gemara itself is a little impatient. It just says etc. Taima mishum chai. What's the reason why you're going to say it's pure? Because it's alive. Hameis. But if it would eventually die, yesh rekev, then you would say that it does have that halacha. The Gemara responds to this. Miktani hameis. Are we talking about this corpse itself, that it started alive and then it died, and it started to decompose? No. Hakamash malan the shum meis yesh rekev shum chayin rekev. When you're talking about in general, you're just doing this very general comparison that the halachas of rekev only apply after something is dead and not while it's alive. Okay, let's leave it over here. Okay.